Hello, now Elena is going to give you a presentation about Manchester. If you have any question, you can ask during the presentation. Okay? Elena, please.
So this is my presentation about Manchester. That's some of the city centre at night. Start with the history. So from the 17th century, Manchester became a famous economic town because it started to produce lots of cotton and wool, and it became one of the most famous places in England at the time. And it was the first town in the world to be transformed by the Industrial Revolution because we introduced cotton mills, which were these, and many people moved to Manchester at this point because they wanted jobs, and the cotton mills made the clothes for the people, so people wanted to, for the first time, were buying new clothes. And by the 19th century, it became world famous as a manufacturing centre, and it was called Cottonopolis because it was the best place that produced cotton. In 1830, the first steam passenger railway was made in Manchester, between Manchester and Liverpool. So Manchester got a lot bigger, and many people moved to Manchester, so the population really increased. And this was good because there were many new universities, buildings, newspapers, parks in Manchester, and it really became a very famous town. But in these factories, the conditions were very poor. There was lots of children, like 6 or 7, 8 years old, that worked about 12 or 13 hours a day. So it was very hard. And the living conditions in Manchester were very poor at this time because there were too many people in the houses and there wasn't very good conditions. But nowadays, Manchester is the second most populous area in the UK, and it's got about 2.5 million people. And in 2002, it held the Commonwealth Games, and now many people visit Manchester. After London and Edinburgh, it's the top visited place in the United Kingdom. And the people, we call ourselves Mancunians, people from Manchester. So these are some of the landmarks in Manchester. The Lowry Museum is on Salford Quays, which is a big canal, and it shows art exhibitions, theatre, music, drama. It has a shopping mall, a museum. It's really big. The Early Centre is famous because of its very strange shape, and it holds lots of exhibitions in Manchester, and now it's a football museum as well. And the Wheel is a bit like the London Eye, but cheaper. So, Media City, this is very interesting because lots of the offices from the television, from the BBC, moved from London to Manchester. So now Manchester is the main place where they show BBC, things that happen on the television. So this made lots of jobs in Manchester. Piccadilly Gardens is near the shopping centre where everyone just relaxes, but normally the day is not very sunny. So, Castlefield is famous because it runs on the Bridgewater Canal, which was one of the first canals in England. And now it's famous for its bars and restaurants, and it shows many live events, live music events. And this is the Hilton Hotel, which you can see it's famous because of its very strange shape. It's one of the tallest buildings in England, and lots of people go to the top floor because you can go to the bar and restaurant there for cocktails, and it's very expensive, but people like to do it as a treat. And they say from the top of this building you can always hear a song, a hum from the wind. So I've never been. This is the Trafford Centre, which is very near to me. It's about 35 million people a year visit this place, and it's huge. It's got a swimming pool, catwalk, restaurants from all around the world, a big shopping centre, a 3D cinema, and many people travel here from all over the world and all over the UK, and there's nothing like this in London. Manchester is very famous for its big football teams, and the main teams are Manchester United and Manchester City. The derby days, that's when Manchester United plays against Manchester City, and these are very important in Manchester, but lots of the time it causes lots of fights, and people get too drunk on these days to watch the football, so it's not very nice to be in the middle of Manchester on these days. But the stadiums are very big, and they also host music concerts to famous people, famous singers. Yeah.
What is the difference of the two football clubs?
They're just, one of them is got more money now, but they're very similar. They're both in the Premier League, and they just really don't like each other for some reason. That's it with all football teams in England. The two from the same town just don't like each other. Music. Manchester is very famous for its music, especially in the 1980s. It was called the Manchester music scene, and there was a nightclub called the Hacienda, and that's when groups such as Oasis, Bee Gees, Take That, etc. They were all formed in Manchester, but this nightclub had to close down because there was lots of violence and lots of drugs. So, but it's still very famous for that scene, and many older people still think Manchester is the best place for music because of that. Now, many famous acts come to Manchester. The Manchester Evening News Arena is the main place where we watch Lady Gaga, Beyonce, everywhere. And also in football stadiums, so that's the Manchester City Stadium. So it hosts thousands of people. That's a music festival in Manchester, that's every year. And it's outdoors for 2 days, and lots of famous people go there, and you sleep in a tent. So it's very good. Manchester's also famous for its fashion, and around Manchester you will see very many different styles and fashions. People wear what they want. It has a fashion week every year, and the Northern Quarter in Manchester is a really nice area. It's one of my favourite areas, and it has lots of vintage shops, bars and cafes, very old looking clothes. And Affleck's Palace is a very famous shop in Manchester. It has 4 or 5 different floors, and you can buy dressing up costumes, you can get piercings, tattoos, retro games, everything. Nightlife. There's lots of nightlife in Manchester because it has 3 universities, so there's lots of students. There's more than 500 bars and clubs, and about 150,000 go out each weekend. So at night there's lots of people going out every weekend in Manchester. That's a row of bars called Deansgate Locks, which is over a river, and it's quite expensive though. The Printworks has got lots of clubs, lots of cinemas, restaurants, cafes. Many people in Manchester like to go to beer gardens, like you can see there, especially when there's football matches on. So they sit outside and drink beer, but a lot of the time the weather doesn't let that happen. And then Manchester also has a very big gay village. So this attracts thousands of people each year, and there's lots of nightclubs across this. But there's been a problem recently because there's been too many people in this region. So in some clubs they've had to test you to see if you are gay or not, really. Manchester also has lots of festivals. So every year it has a food and drink festival. Every Christmas there is some markets, and they are German markets. So thousands of people visit them each year, and you can eat the German sausage, the crepes, you can drink the wine, it's really nice. And then Gay Pride Festival happens every year as well, which is a big parade, and everywhere is closed off, so none of the cars can get to it, it's very private. And Gay Pride is 3 days of parties all the time, and there's lots of music concerts, poetry, parades everywhere, so it's very famous for that. And that's it. Does anyone want any questions?
Manchester is most cheaper than London.
Yeah, a lot more cheaper. Shopping and public transport. It's not cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than London, definitely.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Questions?
And the gay festival is in summer.
In summer, I think it's in August sometime, and it's lots of people come from everywhere.
And the fashion week is in September.
I think it's September, I can't remember. I've never been to the fashion week, but I've always wanted to go.
Manchester is more bigger than Edinburgh.
I think they're probably similar, but Manchester maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think so.
What's the type of monuments that the people reside more from?
Most in Manchester. There's so many different ones that they either go to the shops around there, but then there's famous art galleries, libraries, John Rylands Library. Then there's the Science Museum, that's very famous. Everything.
The games, these games you say, what type of games?
What games?
The photo of
Oh, the Commonwealth Games. It's similar to the Olympic Games, so running, jumping, like, yeah.
What's the most famous day in Manchester of his story?
There's not one famous, there's just many different, it depends, the music, football,
Okay.
yeah.
And in the gay festival there are no spring winter.
Yes. It's only recently in the clubs that they've been testing people to see if they are gay, because there's been too many people, and sometimes there's straight people, there's some arguments, but
And how do they
I don't know.
go?
No idea.